Alright, what's going on guys? It's Lucas here with Lonesome Studios, and today I'm going to show you how to make a lo-fi keyboard sound in Logic Pro X. Let's get straight into it. So first you want to start with your chords. So I've got some chords in here, I'll just play them to you now. I'll take off all the stuff. This is our bass sound. I've started with some nice like jazzy voicings, get that kind of lo-fi sound. So to start with the mixing, the first thing you want to do is some EQ. So to this, we've got two tracks here. So we've got our first track, which is just the keyboard on its own, and a little kind of, I call it like the sparkle track. Just kind of some ambient piano, fill out the sound a little bit more. I've panned that over so it just gives it a bit of widening. So first things first, we want to cut out those lows. Probably even more than that, maybe got to like 200, and really mask out so there's nothing going on in the low end at all. So I've got rid of that on that track. Even more so on the other track, I've gone with a higher curve and I've really boosted the top end because we want this second track really to sparkle. And obviously when you're doing this, you want to listen, see which frequencies you like, see what fits your mix properly, especially with EQ. It's so dependent on each mix. So yeah, we've got that there. And also on this second kind of sparkle track, I've added a spreader, so it kind of, especially I've made it so that the top end spreads right across both speakers, so we've got a wideness to that sound, and then the main sound sitting in the center, so they're not clashing. I've also added a little bit of retro color to that, just to give it a little bit of like reverb and kind of put it in a space somewhere. So moving on, we go to the main kind of mixing channel. We've got first some EQ. I've kind of dipped the top end a little bit. Maybe I could dip it a little bit more to get that kind of lo-fi warm sound. Boosted here for some presence and just body in the mix, and cut some more of those lows out. Less of like a steep curve this time, so that it kind of rolls off a bit more. Next thing is our compressor. So I'm just adding a little bit of compression. Nothing too much, because you want to keep the dynamic range a bit. You want it to push through the mix, but you don't want it to push too far. So we've got a little bit of compression, just very slow. And obviously whilst you guys are doing this, again, the main thing is constantly listening to your mix, using your ears to determine what you need. So yeah, we've got a little bit of compression, just a little bit, subtle tiny bit, just to help it cut through a bit more. And next thing, some saturation. This is quite important. So for that lo-fi sound, you want that gritty kind of, a little bit distorted sound, and added some saturation really just smooths everything out and adds a little bit of grit. So I'm using Decapitator by Sound Toys, which is probably one of the best saturation plugins out there. So and what I like to do is really turn the drive away, and then from that bring down, so that we can hear when it starts to move from not being in the mix to being you can really hear it, and we want to bring that really hear it. Then we don't want just as I've heard it now, just to point out, so in this keyboard mix, we've got like a little bit, you can hear the chair squeak and a little bit of background noise. And I think for lo-fi piano, I think that's like maybe in some more popular and modern productions, you wouldn't want that. You wouldn't want like a perfect take. But for something like this, like having that chair squeak and a little bit of like the breathiness, it adds to the atmosphere, especially when you've got different like textures. Like within this mix, we've got like a little kind of dust texture, and like some binaural textures as well. So it kind of just adds to the atmosphere in the space, which is when you're making lo-fi music, that's what we're trying to create. So next thing, we're going to go, and we've opened up our first instance of retro color, and I've opened up the sad piano preset. So this is kind of like, I think of it like kind of like a vibrato kind of, it's wobbling the pitch, and you can hear it now in comparison to So if we could turn the wobble up, and again, the good thing to do is bring it all the way up and then decrease to when you can it starts to drop off from being the main focus of the sound. Retro Color is really a great plugin for lo-fi stuff, and you can really dig into some of these things: the space, the distortion. You could even, instead of saturation, or as well as, you could add even more distortion in here, some digital to give it that kind of, that digital sound, some kind of bittiness. Yeah, just mess about, especially with this plugin, to really nail in the kind of lo-fi kind of sound you want. Okay, so next thing, we've got another instance of Retro Color, and we're using this to add some vinyl crackle to our mix. So you just get that kind of grittiness, which again adds to the atmosphere and the feeling. It makes it feel a bit old, which is really, that's the sort of thing you want in this sort of music. If we hear that now, with everything we've added, in comparison to without. Lastly, we just added a little bit of reverb, and I think a great tip with reverb to always do is cut the lows to like 300, maybe even 400, because you don't want to be adding reverb to something that's got just all these lows, and it's going to just muddy up your mix. So we've done that. Got a chroma verb on there, dense from. You can really choose any one you want, whatever fits with your mix. And sometimes as well, I haven't done it here, but a good thing to do as well is, like, on your reverb on your bus, add like a phaser or a chorus or something, just to give it that kind of a bit more texture. So you can hear just the reverb on its own. This is just our reverb. So without the phaser, it sounds like this. But with the phaser, it's got a bit more character to it. You turn the warmth on, mess about with that. But really, with reverbs like that, you can really mess around with so many different plugins, and take it to make it your own, really. Now let's hear that whole thing in the context of the mix and see what we've got. And as you can see there, I added a little bit too much saturation, which is, I think, why it's important to always listen back and constantly take a track, started from the start, and just sit back and listen to it, and just close your eyes and hear what's going on. Because, like, for instance, there I'd added a bit too much saturation without listening earlier in the video, not realizing. So now you listen back and you bring it back, and it just helps to mix stuff basically by listening back. That's a really key point. Is always listen back to your stuff on different devices, on different things. Hear what it's going to sound like for a phone. Hear what it's going to sound like. Hear where things are pushing too much. Hear where things are dipping too much, and then you can alter that. There we go, guys. That's how to get a great lo-fi sound in Logic Pro. Please like, subscribe. Thank you, and see you next time.